Florence Eshalomi MP.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Prime Minister. You mentioned that
child poverty is central to that. For every child to be lifted out of poverty, Prime Minister, will you agree that they need to live in a safe, warm, secure home? Remember the tragic case of Awab Ishaq, the 2-year-old that died in Rochdale in, frankly, unsuitable, uninhabitable conditions of damp and mould. And it's welcome that the new government has set its priority on tackling this issue. Prime Minister, when this new regulation is highlighted and brought in later this year, are you confident that this legislation on tackling damp and mould will be enforceable?
Yes, I think it's really important, and thank you for highlighting it, because it was a terrible case that in this country, in these times, anybody could die in those circumstances. So that's why we made the pledge to put it into law. We've put it into law. And
Ladies and gentlemen, lads and lasses, gather around with your cupers, because what you're about to witness is not just politics as you know it. Oh no, it is something far greater. Something Shakespeare himself would have abandoned quills and parchment for something that could fill the West End every night of the week. It is Keir Starmer in committee being asked sharp questions and answering with more waffle than a Belgian brunch buffet. I promise you, this one's irresistible because watching him navigate tough questioning, it's like watching someone try to push a shopping trolley with one broken wheel across a cobblestone street. Every few meters you think, aha, he's got it. Straight now. And then the thing veers sideways again. Before we show you the full video footage of the debate, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Now watch how Keir keeps waffling as this MP asks him brilliant questions.
Poverty, what would you like to see as progress on that?
Well, I mean, poverty and tackling poverty and breaking down barriers has to be central to everything that we do. People will not feel better off or safe and secure if we haven't tackled poverty. But I'm very clear in my own mind that we must tackle poverty by putting in the support that is needed, but also break down the opportunity, the barriers to opportunity, because otherwise we won't fix the very deep and complex causes of poverty, and that's why it's central to what we are doing. And it's not a one department issue, it's across all departments because it is so complicated and deep rooted. But it's got to be more than just support to deal with poverty as it is today, but also to put in place the measures to ensure that people can get out of poverty and stay out of poverty. And that's why, broadly speaking, the strategy we've adopted has 4 limbs to it. The first is to increase income, the money coming into people's pockets, if you like, into their household, to decrease costs to them, to strengthen the local support they have, particularly back into work, but in other ways, and to boost financial resilience. And I'm very proud of the fact that the last Labour government drove down poverty, and I'm determined this government's going to as well.
Okay, well, you talked then about working across departments. You've obviously got the missions that you're working towards. What are you personally doing from the centre in number 10 to make sure that those departments work together? Because sometimes in Whitehall you can pull one lever somewhere and it doesn't have the desired effect. It can actually have a perverse outcome. So how are you going to make sure you're stitching those issues together?
Well, the first thing is to make it absolutely clear this matters to me, and matters to number 10 is one of the central things that I want to drive, and that our priorities are the 3 that I set out earlier on. 2, to put in place the cross-departmental working, which is often the most difficult bit, and then to set up the relevant task force for child poverty. Obviously, we've set up a designated task force to look specifically at child poverty, to devise our strategy, and that reports in, so I have oversight of that, so that everybody can see it's a number 10 Prime Minister priority in what we're doing.
And it would be your aim to see child poverty reduced by the end of the Parliament?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, as I say, the last Labour government got child poverty down, and I want to get child poverty down.
Thank you. Florence Eshalomi MP.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Prime Minister. You mentioned that
child poverty is central to that. For every child to be lifted out of poverty, Prime Minister, will you agree that they need to live in a safe, warm, secure home? Remember the tragic case of Awab Ishaq, the 2-year-old that died in Rochdale in, frankly, unsuitable, uninhabitable conditions of damp and mould. And it's welcome that the new government has set its priority on tackling this issue. Prime Minister, when this new regulation is highlighted and brought in later this year, are you confident that this legislation on tackling damp and mould will be enforceable?
Yes, I think it's really important, and thank you for highlighting it, because it was a terrible case that in this country, in these times, anybody could die in those circumstances. So that's why we made the pledge to put it into law. We've put it into law and we will. I don't think we can simply say that that law on its own will do all the work that is needed. That is why we've strengthened what we've put in place for standards in housing across the board, including checks on landlords to do things like electricity safety checks as well. So yes, I'm confident that it's the right law. Yes, I think it is enforceable and will be enforced. But I don't think in any of these fields to do with either housing or poverty, there's one silver bullet that solves all the problems.
Because one of the issues, Prime Minister, you may be aware, is that a number of landlords, including local authorities, are saying that they're struggling in terms of the funding and enforcement to carry out those necessary checks. We've heard that the courts, we know that there's a backlog in the courts in terms of residents bringing forward those cases. So just coming back to that enforceability, Prime Minister, as a lawyer, you know, for anything to be enforceable, it has to have the right protection around it. So just wanting to know if there's been discussions in that interdepartmental discussions to make sure that these cases are escalated when tenants bring them before the courts.
Yes, there have been. And one of the ways in which I've set up the work of government is to have key ministers on key commitments reporting in to me for a stock take on a regular basis, where we go through progress, what measures are in place, etc. And housing, as you would expect, is one of those. There are 6 areas where we have these regular stock takes, and housing is one of them. So the Deputy Prime Minister and her team come into number 10. And we have a session where we go through a number of different issues, but decent standards and housing and enforceability is among them.
Okay. You'll recall last time we met, Prime Minister, I asked you about the government's decision to freeze the local housing allowance. And coming back to the issue around child poverty, this is an area which is keeping many children and their families in poverty because they cannot afford the rent. The recent data from the local government association responsible for all councils shows that there's a funding gap of around £7 million over the last 5 years. This is a key area pushing many people more into poverty. So I asked you again, Prime Minister, do you think that that was the right decision from a government that's ambitious on tackling child poverty?
Look, I think I defend the decisions we've made. Obviously, we head into the autumn. We will get to another budget, and there'll be a chance to look again across the board. But we certainly made the right decision first time around. I think I'd also emphasise something I touched on last time, which is in the end, with housing, we need to build and make available more housing across the board. There simply isn't enough, and that
but
means
the starts, Prime Minister, you may have seen are quite low. We're not building those houses quickly enough, and we will see more people and more children in poverty. We can't build our way out of this crisis. So in the interim, what more can the government do to help alleviate that poverty?
Well,
that families
as I say,
facing?
there'll be a child poverty strategy which we're setting out in the autumn. We will go into the budget in the autumn as well, and alleviating poverty is a priority of mine. I do think that we need to build more, though, and we have to build more because we've had a problem for many years of not building enough social and affordable housing in this country. And until we crack that problem, we will never be able to get to the fundamental roots of the failures here. And that's why, on that issue in particular, I'm pressing the Deputy Prime Minister very hard.
Prime Minister, on that though, when homes are built in expensive parts of the country, it's very hard for social landlords to afford to buy them at the rate they would need to make sure that the rents are truly affordable rents. So is there anything that on your radar about how you're going to ensure that not just the supply of housing, but the supply of really properly affordable social housing is...
Yeah, that's why we've made a commitment within the building commitment for social and affordable housing and put down £39 billion, which is the biggest amount.
Over 10 years?
Put behind. Well, yes, but...
I'm just be clear.
Well, I appreciate that, but there is always the duty of government to deal with the here and now, of course, but also to deal with the mid and long term. And one of the big problems, in my view, of the last 14 years is nobody did the mid and long term. So we lived with the ever-decreasing cycle of failure and short-term sticking plaster, and I'm determined that we're going to cut through that.
The scene is a committee room. You've got MPs sitting there, papers stacked high, eyes glinting with that peculiar mixture of boredom and anticipation. Boredom because they've heard it all before. Anticipation because they know any second the Prime Minister himself is about to start tying himself in verbal knots like a magician who's misplaced his instructions. And then the first question comes sharp as a blade. Prime Minister, what about child poverty? What would you like to see? Has progress on that? Straightforward, you'd think. Simple. A question with room for a bold answer, maybe even a snappy soundbite. But Kay, here he takes a deep breath, fixes his tie, and unleashes the verbal tsunami. Well, I mean, poverty and tackling poverty and breaking down barriers has to be central to everything that we do. And there it is. The first, like the starting pistol at the beginning of a marathon of waffle. People will not feel better off or safe and secure if we haven't tackled poverty, he adds. And then, instead of diving into a crisp answer, he meanders down every country lane of verbosity he can find. I'm very clear in my own mind, he insists. Always a promising start, isn't it? Before immediately not being clear in anyone else's mind whatsoever, he talks about support, about opportunity, about barriers, about deep and complex causes. If words were wallpaper, Carr would be your man. He can cover every inch of the wall, ceiling, and possibly the neighbor's shed in record time. The committee members, bless them, sit there nodding politely. But you can tell by their eyes, those eyes are saying, is he going to land this plane, or are we circling Heathrow until further notice? And then, this is good. He proudly announces that his government strategy has 4 limbs. 4 limbs. He makes it sound like a mythical creature. The Hydra of policy, the octopus of poverty reduction. First limb, increase income. Second limb, decrease costs. Third limb, strengthen local support. Fourth limb, boost financial resilience. And I'm sitting there thinking, this man has basically just described the 4 steps to surviving a night out in Soho. Make sure you've got enough. Money. Don't overspend. Phone a mate if you're lost. And keep some change for the night bus. But the MP presses on. All right, Prime Minister, you've got your limbs fine. But how exactly are you going to make sure departments work together? Because sometimes pulling one lever somewhere in Whitehall sets off a very odd chain reaction. And here, Kay pulls out his next great trick, the art of answering with something that sounds profound, but dissolves like candy floss the second you poke it. The first thing is to make it absolutely clear. This matters to me and matters to number 10. Translation? I've told them I care. He talks about task forces, cross-departmental working, oversight from number 10. He paints a picture of a great machinery of government whirring away, but the noise coming out of his mouth is less machinery and more washing machine on spin cycle with a loose coin rattling in the drum. Then comes the question that really turns up the heat. Would it be your aim to see child poverty reduced by the end of the parliament? It's a yes or no kind of question. A chance for clarity, a chance for boldness. Kia, without missing a beat, replies, "Oh yes, thank you, yes." And then, just when you think he's finally answered something directly, he dives back into waffle mode, citing the last Labour government, his determination, his pride. Honestly, at this point, I'm convinced. His sentences are like Russian dolls. You think you've reached the end, but no, there's another sentence inside and another inside that, and before you know it, you've forgotten what the original question even was. The MPs press further. Florence Shalomi, composed and precise, brings up the tragic case of Awab Shak, the 2-year-old who died in appalling housing conditions. She asks whether Keir is confident new legislation on damp and mold will be enforceable. This is serious, heavy stuff, the sort of moment where you expect a prime minister to cut through the waffle and deliver reassurance with steel. And here he begins. Yes, I think it's first really important, and thank you for highlighting it. Because it was a terrible case, and he's off again, weaving through phrases like we've put it into law, and I don't think we can simply say the law will do all the work, and we've strengthened what we've put in place. By the end of it, the committee room isn't reassured. It's dazed like a classroom of students who've just sat through a double period of abstract philosophy without coffee, and then comes the kicker. Florence Press is about enforcement, about courts, about whether tenants' cases will actually get dealt with. She asks the Prime Minister lawyer that he is whether the law will have proper protection around it. Kay nods, explains he's got stock takes and sessions and oversight, and the Deputy Prime Minister reporting in. It's like listening to someone describe the world's most boring episode of The Apprentice. Yes, Lord Sugar, I did have regular sessions with the sub-team and I oversaw progress, but we didn't quite meet the housing standards brief this week. Another MP joins in on the housing theme. Prime Minister, what about the decision to freeze the local housing allowance? Isn't that keeping families in poverty? And here, Keir Starmer really hits his stride. If by stride you mean zigzagging like a man on stilts trying to cross a rope bridge in a gale, he defends the decision, but then says there'll be a budget in autumn, but then says housing supply is the real issue, but then says poverty alleviation is still a priority. It's like being given directions by someone who keeps changing their mind. Turn left at the next junction. No, sorry, right, actually, go straight on and I'll tell you again at the roundabout. The questioners are relentless, but Prime Minister, house building is at record lows. Children are in poverty. We can't build our way out fast enough. What are you going to do now? And Keir, bless his heart, he doubles down on his long-term vision. He insists no one in the last 14 years has thought mid to long-term, and he's determined to break the cycle of short-term fixes. Now, on paper, that sounds good, but in delivery, it comes across as the verbal equivalent of rearranging the furniture while the house is on fire. He talks about $39 billion committed, the biggest amount in 10 years. Social and affordable housing, long-term vision. But every sentence has more commas than clarity, more detours than directions. You can almost hear the MPs silently screaming, "Just answer the question!" Mo, and that's the comedy gold of it all. The brilliance of this committee moment is not that the questions are clever, though they are sharp, or that the answers contain hidden gems, though you'd need an archaeological dig to find them, but that the contrast is so stark. The MPs fire darts and Keir responds with candy floss. They want steak, and he serves Soul. They ask for a straight road, and he gives them a roundabout with 6 exits and no signs. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't malice. This isn't cruelty. This is just the K-Star style. Earnest, over-detailed, desperate not to leave anything unsaid. It's the political version of those people at weddings who stand up to make a toast and end up giving a 30-minute lecture on the philosophy of marriage while everyone else is eyeing up the dessert table. He's not attacking. He's not insulting. He's just waffling relentlessly, determinedly, almost heroically. And that, my friends, is why watching him under pressure is so entertaining, because politics is theater. And Keir Starmer's brand of theater is pure improv comedy. Ask him one question, and you'll get 20 minutes of, I think it's really important that we recognize with hand gestures that could conduct an orchestra and sentences that go round in circles like Dodge at the fair. The MPs, they sit, they press, they poke, they're like game show hosts waiting for the contestant to just say the answer that's written on the card. But Keir's decided this isn't a quiz, it's an essay competition. And by golly, he's going to use every word in the English dictionary before he sits down, so when you watch this back, don't think of it as politics. Think of it as performance art. Think of it as Britain's Got Waffle hosted live from Westminster. Picture the judges, one MP leaning forward with a serious frown, one scribbling notes furiously, and one silently humming the countdown clock music. As Keir tries to reach an actual conclusion, every is a drumbeat, every detour is a cymbal crash, and when he finally says, "And that's why I'm determined to tackle child poverty," it lands not like a mic drop, but like the final line of a Shakespearean soliloquy, followed by polite committee applause instead of thunderous cheers. And the beauty of it is, this isn't once, this isn't twice, this is every time he's pressed. Housing waffle, poverty waffle, enforcement waffle, strategy waffle. It's like watching a man try to juggle jelly. Fascinating, messy, and at any moment it might splatter. So, here's the truth, dear viewers. We don't watch these committee debates because we expect revelations. We don't watch because we think today the Prime Minister will provide a crisp plan as clear as spring water. We watch because we know deep down he's going to waffle and it's going to be glorious. We watch for the size, the arms, the circuitous roots, the way he talks about long-term visions while everyone else just wants a short-term answer. We watch because it's political pantoum, and we love a pantoum. And so I say this, next time you see the clip, pour yourself a tea, sit back, and enjoy. Because Keir Starmer under pressure isn't just a politician answering questions. He's a man auditioning for the role of waffle maestro in Westminster's never-ending performance. And if words could build houses, if waffle could eradicate poverty, then by now Britain would be a golden utopia with mansions for all. But until that day, we'll just keep watching, keep laughing, and keep marveling at the art of political waffle, the most British of all political traditions. Thanks for watching this satire and parody video till the end. Please subscribe, like, and share this satire video with your loved ones so you can put a smile on their face. Thanks once more. We'll see you in the next